Hey, hey, Blue Table fans. Oh my gosh. All right. First off, new pajamas. These go all the way down, by the way. Tops and bottoms matching. And I'm just wearing them as my normal wear from now on. Might get a whole closet full of them, and you'll be like, Sean, I don't think you should have gone out of the house with those on. All right, guys, so today I want to talk a little bit about my own role-playing system that I've been creating. And it's codenamed Ellanz, E-L-L-A-N-Z. And that's a fictional setting that I created in the early 80s. And since the early 80s, I've been carrying all my role-playing stuff around with me. Like literally for 40 years. I haven't moved anywhere that box did not go with. And recently, as I've mentioned before, I organized it all. I put it into folders. I figured out dates for everything, like when it was all created. And it's pretty exciting. So I've been reformatting that, reformulating it, and getting it into book format. And I'm up to 131,000 words. Now, by the way, the 5th edition Player's Handbook, I calculated initially 220,000 words, and I'm really short for that. Like, I haven't hit 220. But now I'm looking at it, what I've written and what I see in the Player's Handbook, I'm like, I gotta be, maybe, is my count off? So maybe someone can authoritatively tell me the word count for the 5th edition Player's Handbook. But of course, that doesn't matter. It's my thing. And of course, over every winter, I make substantial additions to it. I've written it in about thirds over 20, 21, 22. And of course, it's now 2023, which is still kind of the third year because the winter splits the year. All right. Blah, blah, blah. So in my game system that I made, first off, I was a hardcore Pathfinder person, and of course in 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons, from which Pathfinder sprouts, Pathfinder had different types of actions. So you'd have, excuse me. By the way, I'm being terrible at this. This really is a ramble. It's oh my gosh, how do you guys stand it? All right, so anyway, you have like an action, move equivalent action, a quick action, and different types of actions in there. I actually have forgotten the names already. In 5th edition, you have an action, a bonus action, a reaction every turn. Those are your 3 basic things. But then they have ones that they don't name that are like, oh, you can just do these. I call them extra actions. And then I was just like, you know what? It's missing the granularity that's really needed. Now, Pathfinder 2, what they did is they give you 3 actions every turn, and you kind of split those up into an economy of what it is that you want to do. And in my system, you have 6 actions. And those, so in order to do different things, it takes a certain amount of those 6 actions. So part of the economy of playing it is when it's not your turn, you've got to kind of plan out how you're going to use those actions. And 6 obviously divides into 2 3s, or you could do 2 2 2, or you could do 3 2 1, and so forth. And as I was creating the system, I wanted characters not just to grow in power, because Pathfinder got out of control with that. Like, you'd be at plus 32 to hit by the time you were in the higher levels, and it just kind of kept scaling up. And then it's like, well, what's the point of scaling up if everything scales up? Like, there's an inflation to it. It's like, well, sure, I'm plus 30 to hit, but their armor class is 40. So I still need a 10 or higher. And of course, maybe I'm just not seeing it right, but that's how it seemed to me. So in my system, I thought, well, it would really be better if you just had a more textured, like you had more, as you grew in level, you would have more options of things to do, and then that would enrich a group to where they could start doing better combinations. They would have more flexibility. They could tactically absorb, like a web of abilities that all the characters had, could absorb like different things that the Dungeon Master was throwing at them. And so that's taken into consideration. In Ellanz, you have 10 levels. So you don't go 1 through 20, you go 1 through 10. And of course, but if you look at the power level and the number of options that you have, it's more like a 5th edition 4 through 18. Because an Ellanzian character starts out pretty powerful. And so back to actions, there are things in the game that can give you extra actions. Like the combat reflexes power gives you extra actions that are called reactions, which I'm going to explain in just a second. So when you take your turn, at the beginning of your turn, your actions fill up. So you have 6. So imagine in the rule book there are black squares that sort of line up. That's what you have to spend. So if you wanted to, you could actually have tokens out in front of you and like flip those tokens. But you really don't need that because it should only take 15 to 30 seconds to do your turn. Something I will explain momentarily. So then you take as many actions as you want, and then you bank reactions. So let's say you only took 4 actions and you wanted to have some for defense or to interrupt other people. So you would change those actions, those black squares, as they're represented in the rulebook, to red ones. And those red ones are reactions. So anytime someone takes an action, they have to stop, they take a break, and then other people can pile on if they want with reactions. And you might think that'll get out of hand, it'll make things too complex. No, in a typical combat encounter, there's not too many reactions floating around. And they're solved very, like literally it takes 5 seconds. You'd be like, someone's attacking me, I'm going to parry that. And then and you have 5 seconds to decide to parry it. So if someone attacks, they just have to count off 5 seconds to themselves. And if nobody interrupts and says anything, you know, after going like that, then the attack proceeds. And you just say, well, I hit. And hold on. Gotta drink water. All right, so so you bank your reactions and you have those to kind of, during the turn, to take actions, like interrupt actions. And but it's not called interrupt actions, it's called reactions. So it's very engaging. This isn't a game where you can sit there on your phone and just kind of wake up when it's your turn. Oh, it's my turn. Wait, what spell do I want to use? No. That's not how it works at all. And then when it's your turn again, all your reactions drain off. Too late. Use them or lose them. And then you get new ones. So some powers give you extra actions, like insectoids, which is one of the player races, can have extra arms, and they can have up to 2 extra actions just with those extra arms to take attacks or manipulate an object or whatever it is. Which, by the way, is a very, very, very powerful signature of that particular race. So, let's talk about powers. Ellanz is a point-buy system. So what happens is when you make your character, you get 350 points. That's at first level. Then when you achieve second level, you get another 100 points. And at third level, you get another 100. And at fourth level, you get another 100. And then at fifth level, you get, excuse me, I said 100. I meant 50. So you get 50, 50, 50. And then at fifth level, you get 100. And then that goes all the way, I think, to 8th level. And then you get 150. In the end, at 10th level, you're at 1,200 points. I think that's right. Yeah, that's right. Huh, that's weird. How can that be? All right, we'll have to take another look at that. Anyway, but that's how you get points to spend. So you do level up. It's milestone leveling with a twist. So there's no experience points. Forget about that. So when you level, you get a bunch of points to spend. And so it's not piecemealed out. And so you spend these points. So there's a huge amount of flexibility. And there's no classes. So a lot of the, all in all, there's 700 powers. So a power is just anything that you spend your points on. And then there's equipment, which is another thing where you get an advantage for your character, but it's also scaled, so it's kind of like points as well. So let me just talk about equipment for a second. So basically, the points that you spend are called character points, and 100 gold pieces is the equivalent of 1 character point. So if you get gold in the game, you can't, well, nope, that's not true. Yep, that is not correct. All right, anyway, so you get an active item limit. So you can carry as much magic and equipment and stuff that you want. But for magic items, there can only be so many gold pieces worth that are attuned to you. So it's kind of like a more complicated version of attunement. And that's dependent on your level. There's a maximum amount of active items that you can have. Now, if you use one of those items, or you lose them, or you throw them away, or it's broken or whatever, or you just deactivate it, then you can take other things that you're carrying and you can activate them to you. And this is it's just a game balance thing to keep people from becoming overpowered Christmas trees. There's a limit to how many items you can have. So basically, everybody should intrinsically in the game be roughly the same power level, because everyone has the same amount of points. And of course, equipment translates into points as well. So at first level, you get 1,000 gold pieces, and your active item limit is 2,000 gold pieces. So that's like just in case you find some things. So you can basically activate those. And that's just for magic items. You don't have to attune the pattern, the soul pattern of your body to have a bedroll or arrows or a lantern. You know, that's not how it works. All that mundane stuff just doesn't count. It's significant, like magic items that actually give you powers that are noticeable. So yeah, I'm doing good. So last night I went through my 300-page rule book now, and I'm still writing. It never ends. Like over the vacation, I was like, all right, I'm going to finish this book. I'm just going to call it done. I'm going to get to play testing. And then I just kept finding areas where it's like, oh, I need to flesh out this whole, it's going to be like 10, 15 pages just to write this. And so I'm writing. I write about... excuse me, 1,000 to 2,000 words a day. And I can definitely crank it. Oh, wow, that's great. A little message from an artist saying that his project is finished. Isn't that nice? Okay. So, where were we? There's 700 powers. That is that correct? Yeah, something like that. It's a freaking lot. And then on top of that, I made 300 spells. And that does rival the Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook. About a third of that Player's Handbook is spells. And of course, in Ellanz, spells are called patterns, and there's a reason for that, which I'll explain later on. And let's see here. So yeah, action economy is really a big deal. There's items, there's powers that give you extra actions. That's usually for just specific things. So you don't just get an action that can be used for anything. The one exception is a player character race called Clockworks, and they can have like a clockwork brain that gives them one extra action. They have 7 actions. And that is arguably the most powerful power in the entire book. So there's a limit to how much you can spend on a particular power depending on your level. It's 10%. So at first level you get 350 points, and that means the maximum you can spend on any given power is 35. Now most powers have a base cost, and then they have options underneath them. So for like plus 5 points, you can get this upgrade. For plus 10 points, you can get this other upgrade. But of course, the whole thing has to fit under the 10%. So, and that's the balancing mechanism to this point buy system to keep people from absolutely going insane with it. And min-maxing. being like, oh, I spent, out of my 350 initial points, I spent 300 on this one power, and I'm crazy with it. Nope, can't do that. It's a limit of 10%, and it's very reasonable. And there are ways to flex that just a little bit, because you can get, so let's say you buy a power that gives you a bonus, I don't know, to your to-hit roll with a weapon. And then, but then somewhere else, there might be a different way to get a bonus to a to-hit roll with a weapon that's not that same power, it's a different power. So you can buy that one and sort of get an augment depending on how you wanna do it. There is a little skill tree involved type of thing, because you don't just have access to all 700 powers to do whatever. Some of them are, so what you would pick in terms of, there's no class, you just buy the skills that you want. So there's race, and then you pick a human land, which is the area that you're from, and those give you specific, like that opens up some certain powers to you. And there's other things as well. I can't remember offhand. You can be an adept, which is a pattern weaver or spellcaster, like a wizard. And you can also be a psionicist. I have psionics. And one of the player character races can have power armor, like custom power armor. And I mean like anime style stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. I've drawn from a lot of different things and put it together in a really cool way. So psionics are a big one. So you would buy, so if you want to be a wizard and have patterns, like spells basically, then you would have to spend 30 points to have Mystic Mastery, and excuse me, it's called Mystic Training, and or you can have the same thing for psionics too. So there's a buy-in, there's an investment to open that all up for yourself, and there's benefits to actually, you get something for the points too. So it's really hard to be a jack of all trades and be good at everything. In fact, you can't do it. So you have to kind of specialize in whatever it is that you're going to do. There are common powers as well, and that's a list of like, I think 30 or 50 powers, just very general things, like flying, ambidexterity, whatever. And you can build a race based on that. So the game world, which I'll talk about later, is there's a lot going on, and you can build a lot of different things in terms of game background inside of that to do something custom that you really liked for your character. So Ellanz definitely has a flavor to it, and the rules, they're meant to be super crunchy. Like, you thought Pathfinder was crunchy? Wait till you get a load of this. But it's not crunchy for no reason. It actually adds texture and interestingness to it. So, for example, in close combat, if someone is between 0 and 1/8 of an inch away from your character, that is close combat, like unarmed combat. And so if someone tries to attack with a sword, which is 2 feet long, say, they're going to be at a disadvantage at that range. So you can just close that distance and just bunch them up against the wall. There's knockback is a big thing. I have a lot of movement abilities where you can, like with a roll, you can switch places with somebody and kind of spin them around. There's a combat suite called Combat Acrobatics where you can move over people, or in a grapple, you can it ties you together at a certain point between the two bases. But if you're the grappler, you can spin them around your base. You can move them. And so, and that flanking, there's also huge, absolutely huge amount of tactics involved, and never mind the action economy as well. So it's pretty crazy stuff. So yeah, that's points. Next time I'm going to talk a little bit about player character races, and you could pick none of them and just use the common powers to make up absolutely your own thing. And yeah, it's just fan. It's going to be so much fun. I'm really excited about it, and I'm writing like more and more and more and more and more. You know, my wife comes out, she's like, "You working on your book?" I'm like, "Yep, up late working on my book." All right, thanks a lot for tuning in. It's going to be good.